Welcome to another episode of What's the Rumpus. I'm Adrian Hanna.
I'm Charles Thomas.
I don't know why, but for some reason I always had this habit of whenever we started an episode of staring at the microphone, and it probably looks really weird while we're doing it on video, because I'm just like, hey microphone, what's up? This is the beginning of the episode, how you doing?
That's weird.
Yeah, totally. I just thought of that because I thought about how weird it was that there's a video that's recording us, and it's recording me staring at the microphone. So.
Well, the last one we were mostly staring at each other, so I guess staring at the microphone is less creepy, maybe?
Staring longingly at each other.
No.
False. Bears beats Battlestar Galactica.
So, disclaimer, I am super brain fried. I've been trying to work on this side project. The problem is I'm simultaneously developing 3 different applications and trying to wrap my brain around how asynchronous stuff works, and it's a fucking nightmare. Because every time I try and do something, I'm like, oh great, now I gotta tweak this thing that the other thing depends on, and then, oh nope, now this thing's broken, so I gotta fix this thing. It sucks.
Yeah, I'm brain fried for the exact opposite reason. I was drinking all weekend, and it was awesome.
Yeah, I drank quite a bit on Friday, but then I was
just Mark.
That's true. That is true. I did get pretty drunk though,
yeah.
And then I was retarded all day Saturday. This is funny. When I was in Grand Rapids last week, I was talking to Ryder, and he was talking about, I can't remember who, but one of Ashley's sisters was talking about the concept of your brain having a B team, and it's like when you're really concentrating on something, you your A team brain cells are out and they're doing the work. But after you drink too much beer, the A team is like, I can't handle it. You got to send out the B team. So it's the brain cells that are like limping along and kind of half retarded and half, one foot in the grave.
It's the
or
brain
actually
cells led by Keanu Reeves.
Yeah, those are the ones doing the thinking for you on days after you drink really heavily. So I was all B team yesterday.
I must be down to my C team.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what's new with you there, buddy?
Working on side projects, and it hurts my noggin. Oh.
Shut it up, you.
Yeah, I put my first package into PyPy since we...
Package.
What up? My bulging package into PyPy, which I'm pretty excited about. In all the time that I wrote Perl, I never put in anything into CPAN. But like 6 months into Python development, I already have a package published in the Python package index.
Nice.
Which is pretty cool. Except I'm pretty sure it's super shitty. How many downloads does it have now?
All of them.
186.
It's not bad.
So people must be using it, or there's a fuckload of Python mirrors.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten any feedback though, which I'm kind of sad about. I keep hoping somebody's going to look at it and be like, this is all wrong, here's a pull request, so that I can make it better.
Well,
So far it hasn't happened.
That's the upside to open source development.
Right, exactly.
There's always somebody who's better at what you're doing than you are, and
Yeah.
they'll more than likely come in, or
Yeah.
at least you hope that they'll more than likely come in and fix your shit.
Yeah. Except the whole reason that I wrote that thing is because it doesn't exist anywhere else. Whatever.
So since we talked last on camera,
Yeah.
there was a bit of a Bitcoin bubble, which was pretty awesome.
Yeah, that was weird. It's still pretty bubbly.
Yeah.
It's just not nearly as bubbly as it was like 2 months ago. Or not even that, like 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, it was not that long ago.
Yeah.
So what happened was the Bitcoin market just all of a sudden exploded one day, and the price of Bitcoins went from like $20 a Bitcoin thereabouts to like, I think it peaked out at $270 some dollars
Yeah.
per Bitcoin.
It literally exponentially increased for a while.
Yeah, it was insane. We have a coworker who is a hobbyist Bitcoin miner. He has less than 1 Bitcoin, but his less than 1 Bitcoin was worth like $90 or something at one point.
Yeah.
we also have a friend who had a fair amount of Bitcoins and used them to pay rent one month,
And
then-
lost out on
and-
like
yeah, and
hundreds
now
of thousands of dollars.
if
in
he had,
Bitcoin.
if he had sold it at or around the peak, he would have gotten like $300,000 out of the deal. So that's kind of unfortunate for him, but I feel really bad for the guy on Reddit that
Use it to buy a pizza.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sucks. I found a pretty good graph. This is a year's worth of Bitcoin value. I'll send this to you so you can put it in the show notes.
okay. Yeah, what is that? Is that through Mt. Gox?
Looks that way.
Okay.
Bitcoincharts.com.
I think that tracks the Mt. Gox exchange,
Yeah.
which is the biggest Bitcoin exchange.
Yeah. Oh, since I have an email up, we also started fucking around with PGP again, which was cool.
Oh yeah. That was
So you can find both of our public keys on.
keys.gnupg.net.
That's the one.
Yeah.
So you can send us encrypted emails like a nerd, Charlie.
Totally. Yeah, I've been using PGP actually on and off, mostly on over the last 8, 9, almost 10 years.
Okay.
But I never really, it's like with PGP, your key is, the more it's signed by other people, the more trusted it is. And I never really got into signing it because I never really knew anybody that had a key. Then this guy decided to start using it, and I was like, oh, I gotta bust out my key again, and I'll totally sign his key, and then he can sign my key. And then I started this semi-obsessive quest with finding other people to sign my keys that I actually know.
Yeah, I've been using it on and off, mostly off, for about 3 years. And I had it set up so that I could receive encrypted emails, but I never actually got one. And so I hadn't done anything other than generate a token or generate a key. And that was about it. I used PGP a lot at my last job for encrypting customer data though. So I mainly generated it for putting stuff in Dropbox that was encoded or encrypted so that I wouldn't have to worry about it. So the thing that drove me to start using it again this time is the FBI is pushing for legislation to require internet providers to internet service providers. That's still not the right terminology. We'll say web companies is pushing for legislation for large web companies to program backdoors into their software so that the FBI doesn't need warrants to get stuff anymore. They can just say, hey, we need this data. And so they want to be able to without a warrant and without notification to the person whose data they're requesting, go to places like Dropbox and say, give me this guy's Dropbox files, or to Gmail and say, give me all of this guy's email records. So because of that, I've stopped using Gmail and started using encryption for my emails, and then I've also stopped using Dropbox except stuff that's PGP encrypted. I'll see if I can find an article about that.
They tried that back in the Clinton administration.
Well, apparently what they want to do is expand it. So the telcos already have immunity because of the nonsense with the Patriot Act and another piece of legislation that I can't remember the name of. But basically, during the Bush administration, that right after the World Trade Center and Pentagon attacks, the government started pulling tons and tons of information from internet service providers, and which was illegal. And then Congress passed a law retroactively giving them immunity for having done it because the government was like, we're taking this data, give it to us. And the telcos were like, well, this is not legal, but what the hell else are we going to do, or we're going to get shut down by the government?
Right.
I don't know, it's a whole mess.
Well, the thing that they tried to do during the Clinton administration was they tried to set up a mandatory usage of I think it was called EES. It was escrowed encryption system. And basically what it did was the US government or some party would be a mandated escrow for an encryption key. So in order to when you encrypted something, you had your key, but you also had like an escrow key, and then the escrow key would go into the escrow vault or whatever, and then you could. And it's been so long. It was literally during the Clinton administration was the last time that I actually read about this. So it's been a while. It was basically like the key that you had could could decrypt the data, but also the escrow key could decrypt the data. So if the government needed to be able to access an encrypted file, they had a copy of a key that would open it.
That's fucking sketchy.
Yeah, and it got shut down quick.
Yeah, I would hope so.
Yeah.
That was also around the time that it was still illegal to have a key above a certain encryption, right?
Yeah.
Like you could only have 128-bit encryption. When did that get done away with? Because I know it has, but I don't remember when.
I don't know.
Probably around the time it became feasible to crack a 128-bit.
Yeah. Yep. But yeah, PGP is pretty awesome. I dig it.
Yeah.
Actually, I didn't know that about the whole thing with why you switched over from Gmail.
Yeah.
I thought it was just one of your semi-frequent
paranoia
Google
attacks.
binge.
Yeah.
How do I get away from using Google for everything?
Yeah. For every like 6 to 8 months, I think Google has too much of my stuff, and I think about getting rid of it, and then I think it's too hard. I don't want to do that. Well, this time, because of all these warnings that I heard about, I decided I would actually do it. And I still haven't finished the blog post. I've been writing up a blog post on the entire process because it's a fucking nightmare. Like, I had to move email, calendar, contacts, phone, which I still haven't done,
RSS reader.
RSS readers.
What would you use for a replacement for Google Voice?
I don't know. There's not a good option. Like, there are some options, but they're not very good. What I'd really like to be able to do is use Burner App. Are you familiar with this?
Mm-hmm.
Burner App is awesome. It's a service that they just released the Android app like a month ago maybe, but it's a phone app that you like click a button and it costs money. It's like $1 or something like that, but you get a phone number that you can make calls and receive texts on through the app that automatically expires. So you can set it to expire after one use or after X number of uses, or if you don't specify a time, after like 30 days or something like that. What I'd really like to be able to do is use that to like generate a phone number and give it out. Unfortunately, because it auto expires, it's not really feasible. Like,
right.
The whole reason I had Google Voice was that I could change service providers at my leisure, which I've done many times, and nobody would be the wiser because my phone number wouldn't change. So there are some services that let you do stuff like that now, but none of them are as comprehensive or as good as Google, which means Google has all my text messages still, which I don't like, but I haven't found a better alternative.
Yeah. That usually is the killer right there for me, because I rely so heavily on Google Voice for everything. I mean, it's beneficial to have the one number, and it doesn't matter if you change your phone number, you still have that one number that gets used for everything. And even if you don't have a phone, you can still use your phone number for things.
Right.
But it's also nice that they do the call screening. So I have it set up by default that if a phone call comes through from an unknown number or a blocked number, it automatically goes through call screening. So before my phone even rings, an automated service has already asked for the person on the other end's name. And so when I answer the phone, I am greeted with a message that says, hello, so-and-so, which is a recording of the person saying their name, is trying to get a hold of you. If you'd like to accept, press 1. If you want to send a voicemail, press 2.
Mm-hmm.
And if you send it to voicemail, you can then listen to them leaving you the voicemail message. And 9 times out of 10 when that happens, it's an automated system calling me about something. So the name is all screwed up anyway, so I can immediately send it to voicemail and whatever. The other thing that I really like about it is that you can block phone numbers.
Yeah, you
And
just
it-
mark them as spam and they always go straight to voicemail.
Yeah, well, no, if you mark it as spam, or you block if you mark it as spam, it'll block the number, and then that number gets a disconnected message. every
Oh,
time you call.
really?
Yeah.
I thought it just went to voicemail.
No,
That's
it
even
says,
better.
it just says this, the phone number it does the standard
Right.
operator, the phone number you're trying to reach is no longer in service.
Yeah. So,
Which used to be my voicemail, my outgoing voicemail message.
that's pretty dope.
Yeah. I got the idea from Lee.
Oh, that's right.
We had a friend in college who had jury-rigged his home phone. So as soon as you picked up the phone, it played the tone at the beginning of that warning message, which automated systems hear that tone and know immediately to disconnect because there was an error. And it usually drops that phone number from whatever list it's on.
Right. So he would pick up the phone, and if he got a dial tone after it had been ringing, he knew that a telemarketer had called.
Right.
So you can just hang it up again. But if it was an actual person, they'd be like, "What the fuck was that?" And the first time they call him, then he explains it, and then he never has to deal with it again.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I found a lot of really good service replacements for a lot of the stuff that Google did, like. OwnCloud is a product that was actually designed to take over from Dropbox and allow you to host your own Dropbox, which I'm using it for, but it also does calendar and contact stuff. So I'm using that. And then my new my new hosting provider has IMAP support, so I moved that over. And then I installed Tiny RSS, which replaced Google Reader. And I think that's everything. Oh, I had to migrate my blog from Blogger to WordPress. And I think that's everything. But the one thing that I did that was sort of sneaky and probably violates Google's terms of service, my email was set up as a Google app. Like my domain RLES blah 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 was on Google, so all of my DNS entries just pointed straight to Google. And the way mail works is there's a special DNS record called MX, which has a priority. So I basically kept Gmail as my backup by setting the DNS MX record entries with lower priorities and jamming a new one on top that had the highest priority, which sent it to my new email provider so that if that goes down, I can still get it through Gmail. But it means that I can still log into all my old Gmail services using the same credentials. So like my Google Voice number is registered through my Google app domain, but because I had those things pointed before and I never like told Google to shut anything down, I still have all of that stuff. It just doesn't have any data in them now except Google Voice, which was helpful because it would have been even more difficult to actually like shut it down completely.
Interesting.
Actually, sort of on that note, I also stopped using Google Chrome, and I went back to Firefox, and I'm reasonably happy with it. Like, when I switched to Chrome, I was like, oh, this is the best thing ever, and now that I switched back to Firefox, I'm like, either Firefox has made a shitload of improvements, which they have because they're like 20 version numbers ahead from when I quit, but also I think at the time I just thought Google Chrome was cool because it looks kind of shiny, but it's not that good.
Yeah. Well, when Google Chrome first came out, it was incredibly fast.
Yeah. But anyway, the thing I wanted to mention was a couple of browser extensions that I installed recently. The first one is I don't know if they just donate to the project or if they actually run it, but it's called HTTPS Everywhere, which no matter what website you go to, it automatically redirects you to the secure version of that as long as it exists. If it doesn't exist, I think it still dumps you back to the normal HTTP. But that means that theoretically your stuff is encrypted end to end all the time without you having to remember to do anything about it. The other one is called Disconnect. Have you heard about this one?
No.
This one's super awesome. It automatically blocks all requests that don't look like that don't look like either legitimate content or they're coming from the place you request. So like if I go to Boing Boing to look at some YouTube video that they have embedded it will load Boing Boing's content, it will load the embedded YouTube video, but it will block Google Analytics and all that other bullshit that gets loaded into pages that is just
fucking ever.
it slows down the page, and it also tracks you from site to site to site. So it's smart enough to filter out all of the stuff that you don't actually want to see. And so you can see on any web page you go to. I'm just going to go to boingboing.net real quick because that was the first example I thought of. Not that Boing Boing is bad or an example of a bad website or anything like that. It's just the first one that popped into my head. But anytime the page loads, it shows you the stuff that it cut out. And it gives you a graph of like time saved and bandwidth saved and stuff.
Nice.
Yeah. It's called Disconnect. There was a Lifehacker post about it, which is what got me to start using it. I'll see if I can find it. Yeah, I strongly recommend it because at the time I started using this, I was using NoScript, which just shuts off all JavaScript,
Right.
which seems like a really good idea right up until you try and use it, and then nothing works on
Yeah.
any website. It's just a fucking nightmare.
Yeah.
But also, so Disconnect uses on average 17% less bandwidth and saves you like some obscene amount of time because it like just doesn't load that stuff. So it's faster to view web pages and you're not being tracked all over the place.
I think my favorite extension that I have ever installed for Firefox is an extension called Foxy Proxy.
Yes,
Which
I've
is,
used that one a lot too.
It's like it takes the existing proxy stuff for a web browser and puts it on crack.
Yeah.
So the reason I used it was for the Olympics last year
Mm-hmm.
because I wanted to watch the Olympics, but I don't have cable, so the only option was to watch it online, and the only way to watch it online is if you are watching it via an IP address in the UK, because the BBC set it up so that anybody in the UK could watch any event for free on their webpage, which was awesome and it was very well done. But I ended up I paid for an account on a proxy for that month, and then set up Foxy Proxy. And Foxy Proxy is really awesome because you can say, if I'm going to this particular URL or anything that exists at this host name, use this proxy. And you can set up an infinite number of proxies probably,
Yeah.
and then just have certain things go through certain proxies. So if you really wanted to, you could set everything up so that if you're going to the top level domain of .co.uk, you go through your UK proxy, and if you're going to .pl, you go through your Polish proxy.
Yeah. If you're going to any site that ends in .xxx, it automatically goes through Tor.
Yeah.
So when you said Foxy Proxy, what I was actually thinking of is Quick Proxy. At my last job, they started filtering web traffic, so I set up an SSH tunnel, and I used Quick Proxy, which would it added a button that you could click and it would toggle whether or not your proxy settings were on.
Yeah, I used Quick Proxy when we worked at Time Link for the
Oh,
same
that's right.
reason.
That's right. Yeah. There was something else I was going to mention. Oh, one thing that really sucks. I really don't like browser extensions for the most part. So if I find a web service that I like that has browser extensions, I usually try to find a JavaScript bookmarklet that will do the same thing that the extension does.
Mhm.
But when I installed all that anti-tracking stuff, I also disabled third-party cookies, which completely hoses bookmarklets. So I had to install the Pocket browser extension and Evernote browser extension because otherwise they just don't work anymore because you can't use third-party cookies. Those are considered third-party cookies when you're using it through the bookmarklet, which kind of sucks.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Oh well, at least it only the extensions only slow it down when you first start the browser up.
Yeah, and when you use them.
Yeah.
I'll probably have to install the readability one at some point too, but I don't think I've marked any articles to read lately.
I use the readability one all the time.
Yeah.
Because usually how I do my stuff is I use Feedly. Like you use Tiny
Yeah,
RSS,
yeah.
I started using Feedly. But what I'll do is I just sit down and I go through everything, and if I see something that looks interesting, I either open it up in a new tab, and then eventually get around to reading everything, or I just automatically send it to Readability.
Yeah.
And just eventually get around to it. Although I've been kind of busy lately, so I think I have quite a few things that I should be reading.
So the best way to use this is going to get sort of complicated, but I think it's worth going into, and I think I've written about it. But the best way to use Readability is set it up to auto send digests to your Kindle. And the reason I say specifically digests I'll get to later, but so what it does is it takes all of the things that have that you've marked since the last time it sent a digest, packs it into a Kindle readable, Kindle formatted document, and sends it to your Kindle. And you can set it up at a time. So like mine is set up to go off at like 7:30 in the morning. So I turn my Kindle on before I leave my house. It auto downloads the digest, and then I have on my Kindle all of those articles that I marked to read. The reason I say use the digest is because it adds links to archive stuff or to mark stuff as favorite. I have Readability set up to auto archive stuff as soon as it sends the digest, so I don't have to worry about it. Because it does weird stuff if you don't auto archive it. Like it will send you a digest of all of the articles in your queue, and then the next day, if you haven't archived anything, it will send you the same digest or the same digest with new stuff added. So the thing that I like about that though is Readability ties into if this then that. So I have it set up so that anything that I favorite on Readability automatically gets an excerpt automatically gets sent to my links WordPress. So if I favorite a Readability article, it basically auto blogs it for me, which is awesome because I'm lazy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
How does that work? Like when you're in the subway tunnels, you don't have. Does it just hold off until
you can't hit the favorite button because it literally just like loads a web page that
right.
that stars it. So you can't do that, but you can read everything without a problem.
Right.
So I don't usually I read the Readability stuff on the CAN because that means I will be near Wi-Fi. Or if it's something that's super long, then I'll read it on the subway because I know if I either won't get to the end of it before I come above ground, or I'll get to the end of it but won't have time to read something else, so I can just leave it on the page with the favorite link. So that the next time I turn my Kindle on, I'll go, why the hell did I? Oh yeah, click the link and then move on to the next thing.
Gotcha. Well, okay, I had something interesting that I actually read this morning that I wanted to talk about, and it is a group of researchers at the University of Copenhagen in Denmark have developed an AI system that generates card games. Not like games like oh, let's mimic poker, blah blah blah, because that's
It like
obviously
creates
done.
poker?
It creates its own games.
That's nuts.
Yeah. So from what I understand, they didn't go into much detail on how it actually works, but they have what they call a gene pool, which is all the rules of games.
Existing games?
Yeah.
Okay.
So they say, okay, here's how poker works. Here's all the rules of poker, and that goes into the gene pool. And then here's how blackjack works, and then here's how this works, and that works, and blah blah blah. And they say, okay, so here's all the games. Make us a new game, and it'll come up with a game. So the game that they generated for the New Scientist, which is where this article was from,
Mm-hmm.
The game is called Pay the Price, and it's.
Does it come up with a name too, or does that?
I don't know if it comes up
Okay.
with a name too, but the game is called Pay the Price, and it's a 4-player game. And at the beginning of the game, the dealer deals out 9 cards and 99 tokens to each person playing.
Okay.
So tokens being whatever, right?
Chips or something.
Yeah. And then you place the rest of the cards in the center of the table, and then you go around the table, and each person can. Each person takes one card. You draw it face up so everyone can see it, and then from there you can discard a card, or you can pick up another card, but you have to discard 3 cards from your current hand.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember how the tokens fit into this. At the beginning you bet your tokens.
Okay.
So then you bet out tokens, and then you do the draw the 1 card face up, and then from there you just keep drawing cards, and for every 1 that you pick up you have to discard 3.
Okay.
And what you're trying to do is you're trying to achieve the highest possible score where all face cards are worth 10.
Okay.
So it's kind of like blackjack, but there's no like limit. You're just trying to get the highest possible
Gotcha.
thing out of it, and then at the end of it, whoever has the highest hand gets all of the tokens.
Okay. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
I would like to play that game.
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought when I read it. I was like, that sounds like an awesome game to play.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of
We
games
have
that,
cards and poker chips here. Do you want to try and play it?
sure.
Maybe we can have a What's the Rumpus Appendix episode where we just like record ourselves trying to play that game.
I'm for it.
That could be cool.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the type of game that this comes from. And they were the guy the guy doing the interview or writing the article was asking if if it was definitely like based on poker or on blackjack, and the researcher said well, it seems like it, but nobody can tell for sure because the AI developed the game itself, so we have no idea what it drew from in order to evolve this game.
That bitch doesn't use logging.
Yeah. Really, they don't have any QA people on their research team.
Yeah. That's super interesting.
I'm just waiting for when they try and build a card game, and it's like okay, so each person draws 1 card, and whoever has the highest card gets to shoot everyone else in the face.
Yeah, we accidentally added Russian roulette to the gene pool, and it got a little out of hand.
Yeah. Well, what they were talking about with this actually, I mean, the novelty of generating card games is pretty cool, but what they were talking about the advantage of using this elsewhere, what else it could be applied to, and it's like you could start doing it towards any game, so you could build board games that did this, but also they were saying you could use that it would work really well for any turn-based thing in reality, like traffic lights. So you could unleash this AI on traffic lights, and it would be able to organically alter the way that traffic lights work in order to optimize the system.
Interesting.
Which is insane.
Yeah.
And awesome.
Yeah.
Until it, fucks up and turns all the lights green.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you could give it some sort of overarching, like, you can do whatever you want, just don't violate this rule set.
Yeah. Here's your rule. Don't let cars crash into each other.
Yeah. I don't really have a good segue for this, but I have a bunch of stories that are about privacy invasions or other stuff that usually gives us a technology hard on.
Yeah.
So, have you heard about Drone Shield?
Yes.
This is super awesome.
Yes.
I found out about this on Boing Boing. Drone Shield is Indiegogo is an Indiegogo project from an aerospace engineer that's trying to build devices using Raspberry Pis that detect drone presence near you and upload the information to the internet. So, drone in this case is not like the thing they use to bomb school children in Afghanistan. It's like any unarmed, unmanned aerial vehicle. So like this is sort of a tangent, but Sean Bonner, who I follow on Twitter, is one of the founders of Safecast, which started right after the massive earthquake / tsunami thing in Japan when the Fukushima plant melted down.
Right.
So Safecast builds small Geiger counters. They're like open source hardware Geiger counters, and they've recently been trying to dronify them. So they basically just took an existing drone and duct taped a Safecast Geiger counter to it, but now they're capable of doing aerial radiation detection, which is awesome.
That's pretty awesome.
But anyway, the drone shield will be able to detect that, as well as, you know, a Predator drone that is armed with Hellfire missiles or whatever.
Right. There's an ongoing project at DEF CON. These guys bought a decommissioned Predator drone. I'm pretty sure it was a Predator drone, or it's some older model of combat drone.
Okay.
And just rigged it up with as much hacking gear as they could possibly cram into it.
Okay.
And they've made it so that it's fully automated, so they can throw it, you know, launch it, and then say follow this flight pattern, and it'll just follow that flight pattern and do whatever they want it to do. So it's like fly this flight pattern and find all Wi-Fi devices. Okay, now while you're flying this pattern, try and crack the password for all of these Wi-Fi devices.
That is awesome and terrifying.
Yeah. So they've been doing all this cool stuff with it in Vegas every year, and it's pretty awesome. And so now you can use your drone shield to make sure that you're not getting hacked from the sky.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find a good link for the Safecast stuff. Man, look at how cool those things look. They're just fucking Geiger counters, but they're in like otter boxes. Alright, I'm just gonna send you to the Safecast blog,
Okay.
and maybe I'll find some stuff later. So, I think I had one that was sort of actually related to this. Nope. Okay. I'll just move on to the next story that I think is worth talking about. Staples announced this last week that they are going to start selling 3D printers. It's called the Cube 3D printer, and they go for $1,300. It will start in the end of June and be available at a limited number of locations. But the reason I think this is interesting is because also announced this week was the very first 100% 3D printed gun. So you can now, so essentially, this is sort of a loose connection, but Staples is technically an arms supplier now, I think.
I'm surprised because that 3D gun project, once it came out, there was a lot of the guy started catching a lot of flack for it.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know who did it or what. It's a dude called Cody Wilson. Trying to find a link that doesn't have so much JavaScript that it won't load. Alright, here it is. Yeah, so you can buy a 3D printer at Staples now and then go home and make a gun. That's pretty fucked up.
Yeah.
Flying is going to become terrifying for a while, although I guess a metal detector will still detect bullets.
Yeah.
And I mean, there was a Clint Eastwood movie where he played a Secret Service agent.
In A Line of Fire.
Is that what it was? John Malkovich was the bad guy, I
Yeah.
think. Yeah, I remember that movie because John Malkovich made a gun out of plastic, and then obviously he got that through the metal detector, but he got a single bullet through the metal detector by putting it inside of a hollowed out rabbit's foot on a keychain, So they just like didn't pay attention to the keys as they were going through, and then he got the gun through because it was made of plastic,
Right.
and then he shot somebody.
Reminds me of the second Die Hard movie, because all the bad guys were carrying around porcelain Glock 9s.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
Everything I learned about armaments, I learned from 80s action movies.
What was the name of the Clint Eastwood movie that you just said?
In the Line of Fire, I think, is the name of it. That sounds right.
Oh, it's not available.
Boo.
Stupid Netflix.
Stupid Netflix is stupid.
Alright. Let's see, what else do we have to talk about?
Yeah, it is in the Line of Fire.
Have you heard about the UK government's Instagram Act?
No, I have not.
This ought to get your hackles up.
Okay.
The UK government passed a law it's been signed by the Queen, which makes it official, I guess.
Fuck off, I'm the Queen.
That basically socializes anything you upload to any website. So if you upload a picture to Instagram now, Instagram claims ownership. The UK government claims that it's literally owned by everyone. So if you upload to a website, it's communal property now in the UK, which means you have absolutely no right to privacy whatsoever. Like, if you have a protected account where only your friends can see your pictures, doesn't matter. It belongs to everyone.
Yeah.
Super fucked up.
Yeah. Also, kind of makes stock photography websites moot now.
That's true, yeah. I mean, obviously this only applies in the case of, in stuff in the UK, but it's fucked up.
I wonder how that's gonna work out for.
I have no idea.
I'm just thinking now about like stock photography sites. Would that make their money off of you paying for photography on there?
Right.
I mean, obviously, the stuff that's available that you can look at to know whether or not you want the picture is all watermarked and crap, but they still will go after you for using that photo, even the watermarked version of it, anywhere.
Yeah.
But now they can't because it's on the internet. That means I get to use it for whatever I want. Huh. Also, and this is not just for photography, right? It's for anything that you upload to the.
It looks like it says pictures.
Okay. 'Cause I was gonna say.
Yeah, unfortunately this, so it's technically law now. It's the Enterprise and Regulatory Reform Act. So apparently it's considered to be enabling legislation, which means that it just enables other laws to manipulate stuff. I don't know. I didn't really understand the article. And it's been like a week since I've read it. So you'll have to check into it on your own, but it's definitely a cause for concern. There's some just real weird stuff going on. It's also going to be a massive problem for service providers like that. Like, as much as I don't like it, Instagram and Twitter make money by making that stuff, by taking ownership of that stuff. Like, meaning theoretically Instagram could sell your photo to some advertising company in order to use it in their commercials. Except now they can't, I don't think.
Right.
But maybe they can. But maybe the advertising company doesn't even need to buy it. I don't know. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah. I hate it when governments try to enforce shit on the internet.
Yeah.
Like, I'm an American citizen, I'm selling this thing through my website to somebody in Canada, but the UK says that I can't do that because it's the law.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have any jurisdiction over me, so fuck off.
Yeah. Except we know how well that worked out for the guys at the Pirate Bay.
Yeah.
The U.S. government basically just strong-armed Sweden into fucking them over.
Yeah.
Um,
The Pirate Bay just moved all their servers recently. I can't remember where they moved them to.
Iceland.
Iceland?
Yep.
I knew that they were moving them, and they finally did it. They just released a documentary on the Pirate Bay like a month or two ago.
Yeah, I haven't seen it.
It's pretty awesome.
Is it?
Yeah. I mean, granted, you have to actually pay attention to it because it's pretty much all in Swedish with subtitles.
Yikes.
So, I mean, you have to pay attention to what you have to read all of the
Right.
dialogue. But I mean, other than that, it's pretty decent.
I'll have to check it out. So this would have been a better segue if we talked about this after the AI thing, but a game development company made a game called Game Dev Tycoon, and before they released it, they put out their own pirated version on the Pirate Bay, except that the pirated version was patched so that you could not complete the game if you bought the patched version. If you pirated if you pirated it, you got a copy that was patched so that you couldn't beat the game, because as soon as you got close, you would lose all of your revenue because your games would start being pirated.
That's amazing.
Yeah. But here's the best part. There's a user comment. So forums started blowing up with people that have, after a single day on sale, 3,104 of the 3,318 copies that were being played were the pirated version. And so there were game forums blowing up with people trying to figure out how to get past it. So it says, here's a quote from one of the message boards. "I can't progress further, help," one user wrote. "Guys, I reached some point where if I make a decent game with score 9 out of 10, it gets pirated and I can't make any profit. It says blah blah, our game got pirated," stuff like that. Is there some way to avoid that? I mean, can I research a DRM or something? Awesome.
That's funny.
Yeah. Although I saw an article, I didn't read it, but I saw an article where somebody was like, "Well, this is bullshit because they pirated the game themselves," and they were like attacking the company for like, "This doesn't count because you put the pirated out version out yourself," or some nonsense. It was some super douchey, preachy troll guy.
Right.
This is also interesting, but again, there's no good segue. So, last week or 2 weeks ago, someone hacked the Associated Press's Twitter account and put out a tweet that 2 bombs had gone off in the White House and that the president was injured.
Whoa.
Have you heard about this?
No, not at all.
So it caused the market to drop like 10 percentage points in an hour or something like that. So Twitter is finally getting more on the ball about 2-factor authentication. Excuse me. So I'll find links for that, but that's not what I was going to talk about. This article is from the end of March, but so I think we've talked about 2-factor authentication before, but single-factor authentication is something in like broad concepts. So, as an example, your username and password.
Well, it's better explained as there are 3 factors of authentication.
Well, I was going to get to that.
Okay, yeah.
So that's standard authentication, is something.
But it could be, the 1 factor could also be that you have something.
Oh,
or
really?
yeah. Like think about like a door that's locked and you have the retina scan or something, a fingerprint scan, something like that.
Oh,
that's
right.
You have something.
That's you
or
are something.
something.
Okay, so there are 3 potential factors to any authentication system. You know something, you have something, or you are something. So you have something would be like unlocking a door with a key. You have the key. Knowing something would be like typing in your username and password. You know your username and password. So 2-factor authentication is traditionally you know something combined with you have something, which is you plug in your username and password, something you know, and then you have to prove that you have access by doing something like using one of those little key fobs that has a auto rotating code on it. So you have that key fob because otherwise, how would you possibly know what the thing was to plug in the number? So then 3-factor authentication traditionally is something, username and password. You have something, a little token. You are something, which is usually it has to be biometrics, which is like a retina scan or a handprint scan or a fingerprint scan. So typically, if it's only 1 factor, it's something. If you're talking about technology, if it's 2-factor, it's something and you have something. So because of this AP dust up, Twitter is claiming that they're putting the final touches on two-factor authentication.
Good.
But the thing that I actually wanted to talk about, MailChimp, which is a service it's an email service provider, so it's for sending out mass emails or sending out transactional emails. MailChimp now offers a discount if you use two-factor authentication. This is awesome. So it's basically incentivizing their users to use a more secure method to get in, which means that basically they're offsetting the costs of their disaster recovery. Like if they get hacked, if the client is using two-factor authentication, then it doesn't really matter unless someone happened to also steal their token, in which case there's a much bigger problem, right? But all of these companies are getting hacked now, and username and passwords are getting stolen, and if you're using single-factor authentication, you're hosed, and you have to immediately lock down all accounts and change all of the passwords and initiate reset policies. But MailChimp had the forethought to say, we support two-factor authentication. How can we get people to use it? Well, we give them a discount. So you get a 10% discount if you start using two-factor authentication, which means even if MailChimp does get hacked, first of all, they're going to be less of a target because of this. But second, if they do get hacked, the clients that use two-factor authentication, it doesn't really matter because you still can't get into their account. So you should initiate a reset policy across the board, but you don't have to start like shutting stuff down because people are getting in.
It's not as nearly as frantic. It's like,
Yeah.
we got hacked. Okay, hey guys, we got hacked. It doesn't affect you at all, but can you please change your password?
Right. Although it's important to note that you should never use the same password twice in two different places. So if you're a user who uses one password everywhere, then it's a problem for you, but it's not a problem for MailChimp because they just disable you.
Yeah.
But if you're using a good password manager and you use different passwords at every place, then you just generate a new password for MailChimp and move on.
I would like to recommend LastPass. You can install it as an extension on your browser, and they do two-factor authentication, so
That's true.
it's pretty awesome.
I have used LastPass, and I think it's...
LastPass is only good for storing passwords for web-based stuff.
Yeah,
Other
so
than that,
that's
it's-
true, but...
it's not
So
very good.
LastPass is really good for people that don't really know how... that aren't very tech savvy, but are tech savvy enough to know that they need to use a password manager. But I think it's pretty clunky software. Like if the auto stuff works, if their like auto form generation stuff works the first time, then it's really pleasant to use. But if it fails, then you have to get into the clunky stuff that's just ugly to use. So I don't use LastPass not because of that, but simply because I started using KeePass years and years ago, and I just am more comfortable with it. So LastPass is a browser extension where your files get synced to the LastPass server, which makes me a little nervous, although they are encrypted locally before they're uploaded. But KeePass, you just get a file. That file is encrypted, but then you're ultimately responsible for distributing it wherever you need to go. But if you use Dropbox or OwnCloud, you just save your KeePass file into your OwnCloud, and then it gets sunk everywhere anyway. And KeePass handles non-browser passwords much more gracefully. So you can set it up to auto type into terminal, Windows, or literally anything. It just detects the title of the window using the OS system calls and fills out forms automatically for you if you have it set up correctly. All right. I think we have time for one more story.
Yeah.
All right. So Nokia has started marketing what they're calling a smartphone backup. Is that what they call it? Yeah, smartphone backup. It's a $15 phone. It's a dumb phone, and it's a ultra cheap candy bar that uses an e-ink screen, So it costs $15 and the battery lasts for a month. So basically you would carry that as your emergency failover. So if your battery runs out and your backup battery runs out and your Mophie juice pack runs out, then you just pop your SIM card out of your phone, slam it into this thing and turn it on, and then you can still make and receive emergency calls.
Nice.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, especially for $15. That's fantastic.
Yeah. So it's also really good in the case of, well, according to this Boing Boing article, in the case of zombie holocausts, but any other natural disaster where, like, fuck, I'm out of power for a month. What am I gonna? Well, not a month, but I'm out of power. What am I gonna do? You use this. So not only will it last a month on standby, but it also has an FM radio and an LED flashlight built in.
Excellent.
Yeah. So this is a really, really good survival. Like, this would be really good to keep in a go bag,
Yeah,
basically.
for sure.
All right, so the last thing I want to talk about, this is less about the podcast, except I think it might be interesting, and more about, there's a book I've been wanting to recommend to Adrian. So we have fairly similar tastes in sci-fi.
Faux show.
You've read the Altered Carbon series, right?
Nope.
Oh, you should. But you have read Demon and Snow Crash.
Yeah.
Cryptonomicon.
Yep.
So the book that I started reading recently is called Nexus, and it was recommended to me because I read I just said the name and now I forgot it again. Demon. So Demon is a super awesome book. I think, have we talked about it on the podcast before?
No.
Okay. Anyway, it's written by Daniel Suarez.
We might have, but I don't
And
know.
the premise is a video game developer finds out he has terminal cancer and develops what is essentially a game that takes place in reality, and it like manipulates actual people in the physical world in order to achieve ends in the game. That's an awesome book, and you should definitely check it out. But so because I read that one, this Amazon recommended to me this book called Nexus by Ramez Naam, and Ramez Naam, and the premise is Nexus is a drug that actually contains basically what's the word I'm looking for? Nanobots?
Yeah, nanobots.
Okay. Contains nanobots that are...
Or maybe nanites is what you're looking for.
I don't think either of those things is what I'm looking for. But anyway, that can... So after you've taken these things, it allows you to communicate thoughts and feelings with other people who have taken it.
Interesting.
So I take Nexus, Adrian takes Nexus, and then we can share thoughts and emotions with each other at a fairly rudimentary level while we're under the influence of Nexus. Except it's got a very short range and it's very primitive and it's also extremely illegal. But the book starts out, the very first chapter is at this party where these people have figured out how to set up repeaters so typically Nexus only works on a very small number of people in a very limited area, but they figured out how to make it work on like everyone at a rave by setting up repeaters and stuff. And they've also figured out how to make it permanent. So you dose yourself and then you reprogram the nanobots so that they don't flush out of your system. And then they figured out how to build software to run on top of the Nexus framework and do other stuff. So like the example that in the very first chapter is this dude writes a program called Don Juan that helps him get laid. And so he goes to talk to the super hot girl and he's really nervous, but then he turns on Don Juan and he just becomes very smooth, and like the software is talking for him and stuff. But it's a super interesting book, and it has really interesting. It deals with the implications of this kind of thing in a very interesting way, like, and it also talks about other advanced technologies. So like, there's a clone army in some other country other than the U.S. because cloning is illegal in the U.S. and I don't know. It's really interesting. Like I'm about 2/3 of the way through the book, and I just got to this point where they have the summary of the opinion of the Supreme Court and the dissent about a ruling where people that were considered to be post-human, meaning they have such technological advancements in their modified DNA that they're no longer considered to be human, that the U.S. Constitution only applies to humans and therefore it does not apply to post-humans. And then the dissent, which is like, this is insane. You've just stripped rights away from a massive number of people without without the foresight to imagine the technological implications of this. And so there's a lot of really interesting stuff going on that is only really hinted at, but like reading it. So the book is basically like a cyberpunk techno thriller. Like in the first chapter, the guys that were hosting the party get arrested by an undercover cop, and then one of the guys that gets arrested has to go undercover because they think that this person from some other country is trying to do some fucked up stuff with technology, and they're trying to shut it down. So it's not really, so it's about the technology, but it's also like, standard issue spy thriller kind of stuff. So there's a lot of implications that are only sort of hinted at, but it's a really interesting read, and I think you'd really enjoy it.
It sounds pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's good. And it's cheap too. It's only like $6 on Kindle.
Awesome. I am adding it to Goodreads.
Yeah, $5.38. It's absolutely worth $5. It's one of the only books where the Kindle edition is cheaper. Yeah, so I don't know how it ends or anything, but so far what I've read is definitely worth it. All right, I don't want to talk anymore.
Okay.
Can we be done?
That's the rumpus.
That's the rumpus!
Caught smoking, double choking, linger on my spleen. I'm dying to find some time. Newspaper conservation, can't believe this election, can't believe these words are true. Oh, never lost it. It seems that the words escape out of state. That's not really true. Motorcade, drive away, take me off to a better location, steer on these wheels away. But stay in the straight, we gotta build a better nation, dreaming.